with our new members. So over to you, Winna, and thank you for chairing.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. As John mentioned, we are calling this meeting to order. We will have first the agenda review. But before we get to the agenda review, we want to welcome all of our new PSC members that have officially taken reign as of July 1st, 2022. So John, I'm not sure if you want to go through the regions and announce who the new members are, if you want to have them introduce themselves, but we did want to take a moment to recognize all of those that are joining us for PSC this year.
Thank you, Winna. I think we can start with Region 1, and Anna is already is on the phone. Just maybe say hi, Anna, and maybe a couple words.
Thanks, John. Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. This is Anna Pineda, and I'm from San Francisco County. I'm the Employment Economic Support and Services Deputy Director. Thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate it. Region 5 has a couple of new members. Elaine Martinez from Ventura County. Elaine, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Elaine Martinez from Ventura County, and I'm the Deputy Director for the, we call it the Community Services Department, but it's the department that issues the benefits to the community. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Elaine. Shalon Jones from Riverside. Shalon, you want to do a quick introduction?
Good morning, Shalon Jones, Deputy Director for Riverside County, newest addition to their team. So I'm super excited to be a part of our self-sufficiency team in Region 5.
Thanks, Shalon. Good to see you. LaShonda Diggs from Region 6 is a new member for LA County. Hopefully she'll be joining us next time. And Vicki Moore is still out on an extended leave, but Corey Hanamoto will be her alternate, but he wasn't able to make it here today. So when we do have quorum, and I think we have lots of good information on the agenda today to be able to go through, as we're just about 3 months away from cutting over our first group of Cal-Win counties. And we have lots of production items that are coming in, and we want to talk through those with the group.
So are there any, this is a public opportunity to speak on any items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, just a reminder to keep yourself on mute, and we have the instructions on the screen when you need to unmute via your microphone or if you are connected to the telephone. So John, next we'll go through the action items. If you can go over the action items that we have.
Sure thing, Winna. We have 2 sets of minutes, and we know that some of our new PSC members may not have been at the May 19th meeting. What I'm requesting of the PSC is instead of abstaining from the vote, if you can approve the minutes for the record only if you were not in attendance, so that we get them approved for the record only and we still have quorum to be able to move forward with them. But of course, if anybody that was there has any modifications to the minutes, we're open to make modifications on either one of those sets of minutes. The June 30th meeting was just the election of the co-chairs. And again, Winna, Alberto Banuelos, and Cindy Utes have agreed to be your co-chairs for the coming year. And we thank Winna for volunteering to co-chair this meeting first. If we look back to the May meetings, we have a number of open action items sort of left over from last fiscal year. And if you have those minutes, I'm on page 9. We're going to clean up many of these action items as we go through. And I'm putting them out there as what we would like to do with your approval, or if you or else if you have any comments, let me know. But I'll tell you what we propose to do. Action item 1, provide update on CalSA's recruitment. Holly routinely does that as part of our fiscal update to the JPA board, and we could include that as just a regular part of our fiscal update and put that on the PSC going forward. I don't think we need a separate action item to be able to do that. But Holly, I could turn it over to you if you can give a quick update on what's going on with our recruitments.
Sure. The latest recruitment is we issued CIT 186-22. It includes some new positions and some backfill positions. For one is a privacy officer. We need a technical security analyst. We do need our implementation coordinator slots to be filled out, and we have some backfilling and some new positions for business analysts. So that runs through August 12th.
Thank you, Holly. And I think we'll leave that one on and open so you can do a quick review like this, but know that it is going to be part of the regular fiscal update that the JPA board gets. Item 2 is providing an update on the status of analytics, reporting, design, development, and implementation. We have completed design development. It is being implemented. So we know that reporting and reports are a hot topic as we go forward. It's routinely an item that our PSC wants to have on the agenda. I don't know if we need a separate action item to be able to track this general item, but know that that will be an ongoing part of the PSC. So I propose that we remove it from the action item list, and we will talk about analytics and reporting whenever folks want to do it, and we'll add it to the agenda and have presentations when needed. Okay. Item 3 is discussing our DEI activities and initiatives. We do that on an ongoing basis. Usually it's at our JPA membership meetings when we get all of our counties together in January and in June. We're going to plan to do that on a routine basis in January, in June, but if the PSC ever wants to have a special DEI presentation or update, we're happy to add it to an agenda. So we will remove this. We propose removing this and just making sure that it's a reoccurring action item at the JPA membership meeting in June and January. All right, item 4, training team will establish retrospective feedback loop and will provide CIT, CRFIs for induction training, trying to leverage what's already out there in the counties for induction training from our CalSA's production counties and looking at the training that's being put together for our CalWin counties. June, do you have an update on that? June or Ashley?
I'm sorry, John, I don't have the action items in front of me. Is this related to the training? Induction training?
Yeah, it was the CITs and CRFIs that I think Ashley and team have started to put together or gotten out.
They have all gone out, and we've had lots of conversations in the training committee about sharing, counties sharing information with each other. This is also part of one of the things that came to light from the communication focus group that we did, that some counties were not aware of the county sharing folders on the web portal. So we have also sent some informative information out to that group so that people are aware that those folders are there and where they can go find information shared by other counties.
Very good, Jen. I really appreciate the coordination from the project team to share that. We know that the counties are doing a lot of induction training, and especially as we switch technology, it's important that we be able to assist the counties as they leverage what other counties are doing. And again, our training team for CalWin is also putting together materials that we believe are going to be helpful to supplement your induction training as we go forward. So I propose that we're going to close that one. And if there's any specific questions or requests, we could definitely put them on an agenda. Item 5 is on multi-factor authentication, just where we're at. That's on the agenda later on today, and we'll sort of work through that. So hopefully we'll close that one out or see what questions there are and leave it on the action item list. Keith Salas, item 6 was a request to rerun the yellow banner cases for the former C4 counties. Can you provide an update? Arnold, are you out there?
I'm out here, John. I will have Keith provide that update during his section on the conversion.
That sounds reasonable. We'll take care of it then. Okay. Rachel, I think we had an action item for our upcoming Cal-Wing counties to assist them in their budgeting and what future technologies they may have to purchase so they can get that into the budgeting process and start doing their purchases. I believe that is closed out and have gone out, but can you give a quick update?
Correct, John. We had shared that information in a previous session with the counties to let them know what was coming up for their technology purchases. And then Holly had also provided some guidance as well. So that item has been closed out.
Very good. Item 8 on ticket escalation paths. Item 9 on the SLA performance. Item 10 on Los Angeles Benefits Cal accounts versus YBN. Item 11 on ticket backlogs are all on the agenda today. We'll be talking through those items when they come up, as well as item 12. And Rachel, on item 13, retrospective Benefits Cal launch and the timeline that will be available to both C4LA, I guess, as we look forward to our Cal-Wing counties coming up, sort of planning for that cutover of Benefits Cal. Any updates on that?
That one is going to be presented, John, next month so that the Cal-Wing counties will know based off of our lessons learned about communications, launch, things around the account conversion, all of that. So we'll talk about that at the upcoming PSC meeting. Yep.
Great. That sounds good. Appreciate that. So Winna, that completes the action item review. I think these are open for PSC questions or comments and or a motion to get them approved.
Set up now. Are there any comments from the PSC?
And this is Cindy, and I would propose to approve the minutes with John's suggestions and recommendations.
This is Vienna. I would second that motion.
All right, Winna, I will go through the roll call. So Anna, do you approve? I think for the record.
Yes, I approve for the record.
Thank you very much. Region 3, Rachel, do you approve?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Region 4, Cindy and Vienna move the item. Region 5, Elaine, do you approve for the record?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Albert, I think I heard you trying to make the motion, but do you approve the minutes?
Yes, approved.
Very good. Shalon, do you approve for the record?
Yes, also approve.
Excellent. And Winna, do you approve?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. The motion passes. I appreciate that. And we'll clean that up as we move forward to our meeting in August, those action items. Let's move on. And I think that brings us, Winna, to our informational items.
Thank you, John. So at this time, we'll have Lisa and Karen give a CalSAWS release update.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So it is a busy summer with our CalSAWS releases. So we wanted to share with you a couple of highlights of where we're at with both our bi-monthly releases, our every other month releases, as well as priority items that are on the near horizon. So just yesterday, our July release 2207 was greenlit by all regions. So we are on track to deploy to production this Sunday for our 2207. So like many of our baseline releases, it has a mix of policy items going in, other enhancements, migration changes. One of the key changes that is going in as it relates to our Calhoun counties is we have the last functionality around GAGR, some time limit functionality, which is just in time. The GAGR user acceptance testing starts next week. And this code is also being delivered to our UAT environment for our Calhoun counties to commence that testing effort. As we wrap one release, we also have more in the pipeline. We will turn our attention to testing our 2209, our September release, at the end of the month. On the slide here, you see some of the highlights, some of the policy items going in. That testing phase will run for about 7 weeks. And as we test that release, we're also developing our November release. So the cycle continues. There's always multiple releases in flight as we work through each week here. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things we did want to share with you, we do have some really key important priority items coming up in August and September. Starting with August, we do have a number of large batch processes that will be running. In a couple weeks, we have the foster care gap AAP, the CNI COLA changes. So that's going to be running across the production counties in the system to apply those increases. And then the following weekend, we have our monthly run of the CalFresh emergency allotment. Those payments continue to go out. In fact, we just ran last weekend for the June month, so we'll be running for July in mid-August. And then LA County has a special clothing allowance run that they'll be running for their child welfare population. September is a very, very busy month from a priority perspective. In early September, we'll be running, again, the monthly CalFresh emergency allotments. The very next weekend, this is our largest COLA of the year, where we run the CalFresh COLA along with the CalWorks MAP increase across the entire population. It is a very large run. And so we are already planning for that, or working with our state partners on getting the values in. We typically get the values into the system a few weeks before we do that batch run. We try to get them in before the October benefit month opens. So usually sometime in August, we put the values in. And then the 19th is a busy weekend. It is not only a CalHIS has a release, that's the big release before open enrollment, and we have some integrated changes going in there, as well as the Wave 1 county prep cutover for our Placer and Yolo County. So that's exciting. And then at the end of the month, we will have our 2209, also known as our September release. So lots of activities in flight. Many of these priority items are already through the design process. Some have started build. So definitely lots of activities going on as we gear up to head into August and September. Karen, did you want to provide any additional updates there?
I just wanted to make one announcement with Michelle Peterson moving from a manager on the policy design team into the test and release management team director. We have picked up Deanna Roeder, so you might start seeing her name on some items related to policy and design as she moves over from a CalWayne position into the CalSAWS, as well as Lynn Bridwell in the next few weeks, also moving over from CalWayne into a CalSAWS position. So we are making a few changes to be able to keep moving forward on CalSAWS as CalWin gets ready to start ramping down as we head towards migration. So just a couple of personnel changes as we move ahead.
Thanks, Karen.
Very good. When I think that wraps up our quick update on that agenda item.
Are there any questions from the PSC? Hearing none, are there any questions from the public? Hearing none, we will move on. Thank you, Karen and Lisa. Next, we'll have an update on our key risks.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Arnold and I are going to walk through the key risks today, but before we actually get to our risks, we understand that the PSC was interested in understanding how high, medium, and low were determined for the risks that Arnold and I have walked through in the past. So wanted to just share the calculation that we use so that folks have an orientation as to how we determine what is high versus medium versus low. And it is truthfully a mathematical equation. We take what is the probability of the risk being realized against what the impact of that risk may have. And the impact has a number of different criteria. Based off of it, it's just a matter of multiplying the impact level against the probability level, and that determines what is considered to be high, medium, or low. If we move to the next slide, just to give you an idea. So criteria ranges from highly unlikely to there is a near certainty that the risk is going to be realized, and that's associated with a given percentage that's used in that risk calculation. If we can move to the next slide, from an impact viewpoint, remember there was on the previous, on the matrix slide, it referenced 5 levels of impact. And those 5 levels of impact are measured from the most minimal impact to a substantial impact that is an unacceptable impact relative across 3 different areas that we look at, which is the impact from a cost viewpoint, the impact from a technical viewpoint, the impact from a schedule viewpoint, and the impact from a quality perspective. So that's how we look at deciding what actually becomes high, medium, or low in terms of risk. So with that, Arnold and I will move into the actual risk. So Arnold, if you want to take 258 to start.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And I'll also set some context here in the fact that as we now are closer to our wave 1 versus wave 6, what we're going to be doing in the upcoming month at our next PSC is start segmenting out these risks by within wave. And so for today, I'll be able to talk through our positioning for wave 1, the first set of counties, as opposed to the future waves, and provide some of that context as we go forward. So on risk 258, this is regarding the CalWin conversion cutover window at risk of completing within the 84-hour time slot. And for our wave 1, we are currently sitting at 87 hours coming out of our last mock conversion. There is a path to get within the 84, and we'll be proving that out with our mock cutover exercises that are going to start up here in the next week and a half. So we believe that for wave 1, we will be able to fit within that window. For wave 2 and beyond, we will be doing those conversion activities and providing those timings in the future as we go through those mock conversion and be able to confirm what those are. So for wave 1, we're sitting at really a yellow level with a path to green. And then the futures, we will continue to pull the analytics as we go through those conversion exercises for those other wave 2 through 6 counties.
Hey, Arnold, this is John. So just to level set expectations on our PSC members, as you stated, next month we'll have this same risk, but maybe like a stoplight for each one of the upcoming waves. that shows where we're at for wave one. And as Arnold said, we are amber headed to green for wave one. We have work to do for wave two, and there's some testing that's planned that might be red or amber as we go forward, and we'll map out each one of those so each one of the waves can see where we're at, and then we can discuss what our testing cycle is and those types of things prior to our green light process for each one of those waves to bring them to green or an acceptable risk level.
That is correct, John. The other component that I'm going to talk about in the risk, and it's documented in that second bullet point, is if we look at what's driving the timing, even on wave one, because people would say wave one has two small counties, Placer and Yolo. What we're seeing is what's driving the elongation of that time frame is we are converting 20 years of history. And so we're bringing everything over from CalWIN into CalSAWS. So I think that will be a theme that we will be driving towards around, does it make business sense to convert all of that history, or should we be looking at alternate means for bringing over what's required to continue to support the eligibility criteria and determine another data store rather than the primary where all that history could go. So that's what that second bullet point is focused upon. And then the third bullet point is we are working closely with Gainwell around those options as to how to bring that over or bring the data over. John, I saw you pop on video again.
Yeah, and of course, those things will be transparent to PSC and we'll bring them, so it will not be a surprise as we go forward and, as we work with the counties on, is this a viable option from a business perspective and things like that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then if we move on to the next slide. So 262, Rachel, I'll hand over to you.
Perfect. And much like what Arnold had mentioned, 262, we're going to be moving forward, splitting this into each of the waves. What 262 is monitoring is making sure that the counties have sufficient information in order for the counties to prepare for their go live. So for wave one, much like the previous risk, we are trending from amber to green. We have a critical path that is in maintenance mode that we are monitoring on a weekly basis. We have a readiness dashboard and checklist that is also being monitored on a weekly basis. And then we will be moving into the green light process upcoming with the wave one counties. So as it stands to providing the information for wave one, we're trending in that area of moving from amber to actually green. For wave two, just for reference, the work plan and the checklist for wave two have been baselined, and the critical path has been baselined and is in maintenance mode. So that one is also trending towards green for wave two. Wave three, we are in maintenance mode for the critical path, as well as for the work plan and the checklist as well. So the first three waves of counties have transitioned away from the red, and then for the subsequent counties, those work plans will be available to the counties, and the checklist coming up at T-minus 10, T-minus 12 and T-minus 10 respectively. So that's where we're heading with 262. Arnold, I'll turn it over to you for 263.
Right, and 263 is focused upon any high priority defects that are being encountered in the conversion process. So on the wave one, we're actually in the green here with no P1s open for the conversion. There is a P2 that the team is working through and has line of sight for closure prior to the conversion window. And they are also working on the P3s and P4s as far as the scheduled delivery. So at this point, there are no showstoppers that exist for the wave one counties. And then we will be tracking wave two and beyond as we get closer to those. If we move on to the next slide. Rachel, I'll turn it over to 268.
Yeah, 268 is our Uber risk that we use to track all of the risks relative to our readiness for implementation for the Calhoun counties for their respective go lives. And this is the one that we've been using to, from a good project management practice, to have our contingency plan defined in the event that something were to impact the readiness for either an entire wave or for an individual county. So it's something that we continue to monitor. That contingency plan has not changed. It is still the same plan, but it's just something that we have for our rigor around project management. Arnold, 269 for you.
So 269 involves Calhoun counties may not have enough development and testing timeline to refactor their ad hoc reports and ancillary systems before go live. For the wave 1 counties, and we've actually started this for the wave 2 and beyond, we're going through very detailed discussions with the counties around the reporting options that are available to them. So the first stop is really, what are the reports that come canned with the CalSAS system? They're already there. And then the second component is what can be covered through the reports and dashboards that are available in the Click Data Lake. And then the third gets into the Apex and the EDR solution and ad hoc reporting. So we're going through each of those county sets of reports, mapping them to CalSAS equivalents. For the wave 1 counties, there are both Placer and Yolo still have some ad hoc refactoring to do. At this point, though, we are still reporting green in the fact that they believe they will have it complete by the time they go live. So we are continuing to use the enhanced communications around reports in general to address the wave 2 through wave 6 county, as well as address any concerns that the C4 counties are having in the report process within production. So this remains a high focus area as we assist the counties and proceed towards the conversion cutover.
Just one additional thing, Arnold, to add is that for the wave 1 counties, they have exercised the option for support from the consortium to help with refactoring some of their reports. So the team is working through that to help out.
That is correct. And the same goes for the interfaces with the ancillary systems as well.
Yeah.
If we move on to the next slide. So then 270, Rachel, I hand that back to you.
Sure. So 270 is another risk that we are going to be separating out by wave. This is tracking the change discussion guides and making sure that the change discussion guides have information that is helpful for the counties to allow their supervisors to help prepare their staff for the change that is coming. So for wave 1, where we sit with the change discussion guides, is the change discussion guides have been approved. There has been a series of prep sessions for both wave 1 counties to prepare supervisors and managers for those conversations, to help them with orienting around the change discussion guide and running through a role play to help them with understanding how those conversations might actually take place. So change discussion guides for wave 1 are also one that is now trending away from red and into a place where it is trending from right now yellow, trending yellow to yellow. We are going to be monitoring the change discussions that are taking place within the counties just to make sure that those ongoing conversations are hitting the mark of where they need to be. So this one's been a trend towards an amber color. The wave 2 counties, we had approval for one of the wave 2 counties just received on their change discussion guide. There are 2 wave 2 counties that are pending approval at this point, and we're working with the counties to resolve the pending comments that are associated with wave 2. Wave 3 counties, just to give a heads up on where we're sitting with wave 3, the wave 3 counties, we were originally planning to have the wave 3 counties in draft format by the end of this week. Based off of some lessons learned from waves 1 and wave 2 both, the approach for wave 3 is being reevaluated to see if there are some changes that we can make to make it more of an interactive approach with the counties. But it's something that we will be reaching out to the wave 3 counties to talk about in further detail. And wave 4 has not yet started, or 5 through 6, but that's something that we'll be tracking on an ongoing basis. Okay, we could move to the next slide. Arnold?
So, so I'll take 272. And so this is really a technical issue around the connectivity between CalSAWs and the counties. And so 272 is focused on changes to Cowan County's POP locations. That's point of presence. Site locations occurring less than 12 months prior to go live may be at risk from not having connectivity with CalSAWs or meeting the cutover milestones. And so in preparation for the conversion event, a CRFI has been distributed to the Cowan counties to understand the size of network capacity that needs to be implemented in order to support the CalSAWs application and the ancillary systems. And so this is just a risk from a perspective of, for our first wave of counties, we're actually green with things going with the network connections in place. As we look forward, though, we did have one county, Santa Clara, that did have a change in data center location, which then had a downstream impact of causing a reorder of a network connection, or the 2 network connections that will be established between Santa Clara and the CalSAWs. So we are working with Santa Clara around alternate means, since we have to reset the clock, and those circuits take between 3 and 4 months to actually provision by the providers, in this case AT&T. And so we are working for alternatives so that we can still do converted data validation, interface partner testing in order to mitigate the risk. So for the wave 1s, we are green. For subsequent waves, we are green, other than Santa Clara, where we are working through the alternate means so that we can still have workarounds in place until those circuits are implemented. We move on to the next slide. So 275 is around Cowan County's unable to complete tech readiness activities. And so this is really getting into focused on wave 1, which is Placer County, and the fact that they were doing a firewall refresh, and that created some schedule conflict with the CalSAWs implementation. The good news is that those changes were implemented over the course of the weekend, and their final set of changes will actually be implemented on tomorrow night. So from this one is also trending back to green, and should be green as of next week. So we are continuing to go through the interface partner testing and initial data flows with the circuits, and right now everything is trending to the green on this for Placer. So if we move on to the next slide. So 278, Rachel, I'll hand back to you.
Yes, this is a new risk from, I believe, the last PSC meeting. So I want to spend a little bit of time on this one. There is an implementation support plan that the ISS team is responsible for developing. And this risk was used to track the fact that there was a delay in the submission of the implementation support plan. In addition to there being a delay, there were 2 critical pieces of the plan where there needed to be alignment on and agreement on around approach. And those 2 areas were around the post-implementation support effort, as well as the pre-implementation support effort that would support the county prep related activities. So we were using this risk to track the completion of the plan and the associated activities that are along with that. This particular risk is trending now from a red to a yellow stage, is where it is trending at this point, based off of a couple of items. The deliverable has since been submitted. There has been agreement on the approach associated with post-implementation support as well as pre-implementation support, but there are a set of activities that are still pending, which is why we're keeping it in a monitoring stage, in a yellow stage, which is associated with making sure that it's resource loaded for both of those items, as well as some of the, I'll call it the more technical implementation details of how tickets are routed, how handoffs take place between the help desk and individuals. We're using this to continue the focus, which is why it's going to stay at an amber stage for the near future. Both of those activities right now are planned to be completed in the month of August. And so we will be monitoring this, but we're seeing this trend upward from where it had been in the past with some increased focus. Okay, if we could go to the next risk. Arnold?
Yes, and I will take all the risks on this page. And so we've now moved into our amber risks. And for these ambers, when I talk about wave one, we are actually green for wave one across all of these. And so they're left for amber for subsequent waves until we get the actual metrics in that prove that we are green there. So the first is 236, which is scaling of the analytics dashboards and reports for 58 counties may have an impact on system batch performance. The batch performance testing for wave one, which actually did include Contra Costa, was positive in the fact that we were able to meet the batch SLA out of the performance test. So on top of that, the team continues to identify additional performance improvements. So we are confident that for wave one, after we go live, we will continue to be able to meet the batch SLA. For 237, that's also related to what I just talked about on 236 with the analytics dashboards applying to the core batch. For wave one, performance test has shown that we will be able to complete batch within the SLA. And then we will continue to do the tuning. And as we bring in the additional counties, we will continue to do performance testing. And again, this will remain in amber until we have the positive results there. On 264, this is regards to Cowan County waves may not complete their imaging migration readiness activities by their designated wave go live dates. Right now, we're actually trending green across all waves on this. And so in our next PSC, we will see this downgraded more than likely to a low level risk. Whoops, Winna, I was unsure if you were you trying to say something, Winna?
You're fine, you're fine.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, if we move on to the next slide, please. So 267 is in regards to GAGR functionality in the fact that the validation may be delayed past May 2022. As Lisa spoke about with the upcoming release, the 2207 release, we will be implementing the time clock feature within GAGR. And so this will be able to go to green once the successful implementation occurs this upcoming weekend. And then 276 is the final medium risk that is really focused on the golden data set number 13 in wave 6 and some timing impacts around interface partner testing and county data validation. And so we are currently working through options on how we deconflict that. And so we will be continuing to provide updates as we finalize on those options, collaborate across the counties, and to come up with the final plan that we will execute to avoid the conflict there. So if we move on to the next slide, 256 is just being kept open just due to the history of imaging. I'm very happy to say that from an imaging performance perspective, performance remains very strong and is meeting expectations for all 40 counties, including Los Angeles after the Los Angeles go live. In addition, we are seeing the loads increase as we load the wave one and subsequent wave data into the production database with no degradation. So this is being left open to monitor, There will be another performance test that is executed as we get closer to the wave 5 and 6, so that we can just confirm that the system will remain performant. But right now, this is a low risk, really meant for monitoring purposes. So that brings us to the end of the risk discussion. There's one other topic that I will talk about, and that is the fact that we did have a production incident on Friday, in which there was a period of time from roughly 8 to noon when we were seeing log-on requests being rejected coming out of the ForgeRock application. The team also took an unplanned emergency change at noon to attempt to remediate that. And during the course of the remediation, ran into issues that caused a full downtime between 12 and 2. And so from that perspective, all systems were, users were unable to log into the systems because this was engaged with the ForgeRock application, which does the front end security and the login. From root cause analysis, initial indications, and we are still completing this, is there are a number of issues that we are delving into. It was root cause shows that this was a human error in applying a change the previous evening. And so what we are looking at is revising those processes for the implementation on the types of changes that were made that Thursday evening, as well as the monitoring as to why alerts were not generated, because what we saw was there was a cluster of 3 servers. 2 of them were fine after the change. The one had problems, and that's why we saw the intermittent issues with roughly 20% of the login requests. So we're looking at the monitoring and the post-implementation validation to understand how the team missed the impact to that one server. The other component that the team is researching is from the downtime and causing the full elongation of the outage window from the planned 30 minutes to 2 hours, understanding what could have been done to avoid the challenges that the team encountered during that remediation window, so that we could avoid the impact that we had across all production counties on a Friday afternoon. The final component that we're looking at is the decision around potentially failing over to the disaster recovery environment and evaluating whether the call should have been made to do that as a mitigation measure to address the downtime window and again minimize the impact. So from looking forward to our upcoming counties and the conversion windows, the ForgeRock application is still a stable application and has been performance tested, and so that the issue isn't in ForgeRock's readiness for the further conversion, but there are definitely actions, management actions and process actions that will be taken to minimize the likelihood of future human errors, as well as improved response times, as well as improved communication. Because we know that there were, in some of the feedback that we received back on the communications that were occurring, more proactive, clear around impact, as well as resolution timeframe would have helped the counties plan what to do with their workforces as we were going through this unscheduled event. So with that, I'm happy I'll turn it back over to you.
I apologize for that interruption. There's a sign on the door that says do not enter, but everyone was coming in, so I was trying to stop them. At this time, I will open it up for comments from the PSC. Okay. Seeing no comments from the PSC, are there any public comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move forward with the conversion update.
Okay.
Keith, you're coming off.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So let me start with the action item. I apologize, my video is just kind of off here. So the action item that Mr. John Belay had noted for the conversion team to generate the yellow banner cases for the C4 production counties in CalSAWS now. As noted in the previous PSC sessions, we do have we have a dashboard that is updated on a nightly basis. We've communicated out to individuals who need access to that dashboard, and we ensure that they did have access, and we've confirmed that they do have access. Specifically, we've been working with Kern County, who's been requesting access. So at this point, I believe we have everybody. We've completed that action item. However, we'll continue to monitor this. If other individuals from other counties need access, we can certainly work with them. It's a bit of a manual step for us. What we need to ensure is, number one, they have authentication into CalSAWS, really meaning they have production access and that it's active. May have production access, but if they haven't accessed it in 3 to 6 months, it may not be active. And we need to see that on our on our dashboard side, and it's our enterprise reporting tool, Click, so that we can sync up that access with the dashboard. So a bit of a manual step for us to do that, but it's not a heavy lift for us, and we can certainly do that. John, I'll get to you in just 1 second. And moving forward, we have an SCR that is going to automate this in CalSAWS, and it will be based on security profile. So once we have this implemented in the system, we're really implementing this in preparation for the Cowlin counties. But once we have it activated there, then this manual process goes away. Sorry about that, John. You have a question?
I just wanted to, and thank you for that, Keith, maybe get confirmation from Cindy that, the work that we did with your county is, because I think that's where the action item in the minutes sort of emanated from, and just make sure that that does close out the action item, knowing that it is available. We'll work with any of the counties that want it rerun and access to the dashboard. So if we just can get confirmation.
Yes, hi, John, and thank you, John, and thank you, Keith, for that update. And yes, confirming we did work with Keith and his team, and so thank you for that, reaching out, and we did get the report, and we are working on it. So yes, confirmed and completed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and thanks for that, Cindy. And just let us know if you have any concerns with that.
Will do.
Okay, so from a conversion perspective, I think just like everybody else, we've all been very busy, and the conversion team has also been very busy. We talked about converted data testing, and since the last meeting, we're continuing to support that effort. We closed it out at the end of May with a conditional approval, recognizing that we still had priority 2 defects that were open, and they were going to be delivered in downstream golden data sets or converted data sets. And so we continue to support that. Just recently, we had the delivery of golden data set number 8, which was a result of mock conversion number 1. And a couple of things with the results of that delivery, we opened up the environment for county data validation. And then when county data validation was complete, then we asked the converted data test team to go into this environment and test out all of the defects that were delivered with that. And they have now completed that. So they completed all of the execution of their defects. We still have some outstanding defects. We have some defects that were reopened, and we have some defects that are new. This isn't a surprise. These are things that we come to expect. The CDT effort was a very rigorous testing. And I say that with all due respect, it was what was needed. And I think it's what was needed is what's got us to where we are with converted data validation, as well as user acceptance testing, which essentially is a lack of a better description, a better user experience, and that we're presenting to the counties. So John, sorry, I see that you popped up.
Yeah, thanks for that, Keith. I know that we have some newer PSC members that have joined, and I think I appreciate the update, but much of what you said was probably in project speak, and people may not have been tracking So maybe a little bit of a level setting, especially for our newer Cal Win PSC representatives on where we're at and, what is a P2, what is a golden data set, CDT, a conversion data set, and just quickly go over those so that they can put what you're saying in context.
Okay, and I'll try to do this through the life cycle, so I'm covering everything on the slide and not going too long here. Converted data testing, what that is a phase of testing that we essentially go through a system test of the application, which was done months and almost years ago, system test, and then we run those same scripts, but using converted data. And so what we're doing here is we know that the system is functioning the way it should be. Now, if we insert or add converted data on top of that, any issues that we identify are likely to be issues with converted data. And so we started this effort back in November, and as I mentioned, we completed it in May, and we went through the process of identifying any type of anomalies that we can see. In some cases, they were very material. In some cases, it was, this just looks odd. Can we investigate? And so we've gone through that effort, and we've identified many of the issues. When we identify an issue, that's a defect, and we prioritize that as priority 1, 2, 3, or 4. Priority 1 means you can't do anything in the system, and that's a showstopper. Priority 2 means there is likely to be a workaround, but it is very cumbersome, or it impacts a large set of cases. And so we want to prioritize that over, say, a priority 3, which is there is a workaround in the system. It looks odd, but you can do something, meaning you may need to enter data and then move on to the next screen. And then priority 4 is much of the same of priority 3, but it really is more of a cosmetic nature. And so that's kind of the dispositions on priority 1 through 4.
Thanks, Keith, for that. And then the golden data sets is the next time when we apply those fixes where they can be retested. So we have to reload the code and that data to be able to validate that those defects have been remediated, correct?
Yeah, so we, a long time ago, we created a schedule of golden data sets, and that really represents converted CalWin data. We did this for the C4 counties as well. And we wanted to put that schedule out there so that the project knew when we were planning to deliver a golden data set, converted data, so the project could use that for whatever they needed. And we really scheduled that or planned that with respect to converted data test timelines, performance test timelines, user acceptance timelines. And so this is a coordination across the project to make sure that what we were delivering is delivering on schedule for the rest of the teams. And then that gets us to where we're at today. As Arnold had mentioned, mock cutover number 1, that was completed in the month of June. That resulted in golden data set, once again, a converted data set, resulted in golden data set number 8. That was used for county data validation. We received a lot of good feedback from that. That was facilitated, I would say that was planned, coordinated, and facilitated by both the consortium and the Clarabas QA team. Our conversion Accenture teams kind of just stepped back and supported that. But what we heard was a lot of good things. One piece of feedback I think we did hear is that there was an ease of use in the system. And what I always like to say is, I've always heard in the past, it's all about the data, but when it's not about the data, that's a good thing. And that's when we hear ease of use, that was a good thing. So it's positive feedback on that. Moving forward, we are starting mock cutover number 2. And once again, as Arnold stated, this is a dress rehearsal. This really tests out our environment, make sure that we've got the environment configured properly, dialed in, and making sure that we're performing as we expect to. That's respect to risk 258, which is the 84-hour cutover window. And so, this is now reconfirming that all the things that we've addressed over the past month since our last mock, they are still performing as we expect. And the mitigation steps that we're employing are actually working to our expectations as well. So the mock cutover number 2, that starts at the end of the month. That starts on the 30th, and that will go through mid-August, and that will result in another golden data set for delivery to the project. Now, everything I talked about here is we're focusing in on wave 1. We are right at that, pivot point where we're going to start to focus in on wave 2. So as I noted, mock cutover number 2 for wave 1 starts at the end of this month. As soon as we're complete with that mock, we then run the conversion for wave 2. So there's a lot going on this slide, and it's a lot going on because it's by design, but you kind of see what happens here, or hopefully understand what happens here is we do a conversion, and then we have wave 1, and that includes wave 1 plus production. And then we do a conversion of wave 2 and put that on top of that. So there's this predecessor successor relationships associated with that. And so that is planned to be complete at the beginning of September. So we're going to be doing a quick turn here and then focusing in on wave 2 counties. And then when we look at wave 2, their county data validation, that's planned to start at the beginning of October. And that goes through, it's a 2-week-long effort, once again, managed by the consortium and ClearBest QA and conversion supporting it, Accenture conversion supporting it. That's a 2-week-long effort. And then they're complete with that. And then that same environment will be utilized for process simulation, which is an activity that our change and ISS teams are organizing. And then for wave 2, our mock cutover is planned for the December timeframe. So a lot going on. It probably took a little bit longer than I intended, but hopefully it gives you some insights in terms of what we've been doing and what we plan to do here in the next few months. So I will pass it back to you and see if there are questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the PSC?
Hi, Winna, this is Anna from San Francisco. I just want to say thank you to Keith and John for explaining that really carefully. That provided me with a good reference and history on it. Thanks.
I should have known better. Thanks, John. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Teamwork, Keith, teamwork.
Yeah, we're one.
Comments or questions from the PSC? Any questions or comment from the public? All right, we'll move right along with our CalWIN Wave 1 implementation, Readiness Dashboard, and packet.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Van Namen. I'm one of the ISS implementation leads. And this morning, we're going to walk through the Wave 1 Readiness Dashboard and the executive summary. So we're going to start this morning by orienting everyone with the summary timeline view of all of the activities for Wave 1. And as you can see, we are the team, as John and Rachel and Keith mentioned, there is a lot going on right now. So a couple of highlights just wanted to draw everyone's attention to pertaining to where we are in the middle of July heading into T-3. So a few things to note regarding the timeline. For UAT, we are finishing up group 1 and the retest begins next week. Simultaneously to that, group 2 for UAT, the kickoff is this week and testing begins next week. The interface partner testing, or IPT, continues for Wave 1 through the end of August, and we'll talk more about the progress as it pertains to both Placer and YOLO, and also reinforce what Arnold was mentioning regarding RIS 275. The next item, just to highlight from a milestone and a critical path perspective, the configuration for Wave 1 and Wave 2 is coming to a close, and the teams are transitioning into process simulation. There's been some initial kickoff meetings this week, and that officially begins next Monday, the 25th. The next core critical item, and Rachel touched on this as well earlier regarding risk number 270, But the progress that the teams and the counties have been making towards those change discussions, the initial discussions with the county managers and supervisors were conducted last week. And the team is now going to be working with the counties and monitoring those ongoing discussions with county staff through the end of August. Another major milestone that occurred over the past week is that early training and early learning and train the trainer began. And also with all of the end users also have access to the WBTs and some of that learning journey map as well. From an implementation perspective, all of the activities continue to move forward. The planning for the green light meetings has also begun, and more information will be provided shortly about that. From a technical perspective, a lot has been going on. Again, the coordination with the IPT work streams for testing and working with the county TPOCs continue to be a high priority for the project, as well as a watch item. The help desk fulfiller training begins next week on the 26th, and working with the counties on a number of additional items for looking at the firewalls, troubleshooting anything that comes out. So there is a lot going on, and we'll continue to provide this type of information every month going into Greenlight. The next slide, we wanted to highlight the readiness for Wave 1. This is our executive summary view, and just to orient everyone regarding how this has been organized. There are 7 readiness areas that we are tracking progress and activities within the counties as well as the project. Those 7 readiness areas include application, integration items, conversion, technical, training, organizational, and implementation. We have further defined and broken down those readiness areas into categories that again align to the critical path, as well as all of the activities from a work plan perspective, both within the project as well as the county checklist items. So a few things just to note on the first slide for the executive summary. As Lisa already indicated, there is another CalSALS release coming the end of this week. The contact center, imaging, and central print readiness continues to be on schedule and moving forward with all of the planned activities. For Benefits Cal, the team has been validating the CBO user load in ForgeRock, and that will continue over the next 3 weeks. UAT, we've already briefly touched on. Group 1 is almost complete with retest starting next week, and Group 2 kickoff is this week, and the testing will begin next week. For integration in the county interface partner test, as well as the state interface partner testing, that continues to move forward. It is on schedule, and that continues through the end of August. We already heard from Keith regarding the detailed conversion update, but again, everything is continuing to move forward. On behalf of the technical, the county network connectivity, and Arnold did a great job earlier articulating where we are with the monitoring of the risk, as well as making sure that the connectivity for IPT and a number of other areas across the project have been installed, tested, and validated. Performance testing on the project is another area that we are completing, and that is broken down into batch performance as well as online performance. Those testing measures continue to be in progress and on schedule. The next slide we'll walk through as well, starting with training. So a few things just to note, and also if I, just to clarify, there is a status color that is aligned to each of the readiness categories. So a few things just to highlight at the top of the page for training. The master training plan, as well as the Wave 1 training specific county plans, they have all been approved. And so that color indicator is green, is blue, marking that as a complete task. The next major item for training has been all of the Wave 1 county specific classroom setup for instructor led. And this really is focused on the connectivity for the training production environment, making sure that the workstations have been certified. So all of those items continue to be on track in preparation for end user training, which will begin in August. Early learning and train the trainer are currently underway. Both Placer and YOLO have opted in for a virtual, both virtual for early learning and train the trainer. The next item is within the organizational readiness. Rachel had indicated the progress change discussion guides. And last week, the change sessions with the supervisors for both Placer and YOLO were conducted. And now we are moving this from a red into that yellow or that amber to really continue focusing on the monitoring of those ongoing change discussions with staff. And those are done through weekly touch points as well as office hours. And then also through the readiness survey that will be conducted for the T-3 later in August. Communications continue to go underway. There's a July infographic that will be released shortly. And all of those are on target and on schedule according to the change, the communications county plan that we have. The next item is BPR. For Wave 1, BPR has been closed out and all of the associated activities have been completed. Subsequent to that, like we had just mentioned a few minutes ago, the configuration items for the project, including configuration guides, information around the county specific options and elections that they've taken, all of those are wrapping up this week and helping to prepare for the process simulation, which officially kicks off next week. From an end-to-end testing perspective, but the kickoff is also this week. And we're working through that with both Placer and YOLO and coordinating across the teams from a conversion as well as a UAT perspective. Lastly, with implementation, a few items to note, and Rachel had mentioned also that we are tracking the risk for 278 and transitioning from a red to a yellow for this item as well. It was resubmitted last Friday, and there have been a number of work groups that we continue to move forward with to really focus and hone in on more of the details around that ticketing, that escalation, as well as making sure from a communication perspective that all of those processes are fully fleshed out and then communicated outward as well. County prep activities, the team has documented 38 county prep activities that will be initiated in September for the Wave 1 counties. We are in the process of scheduling that county prep kickoff meeting, which will be the week of, we're looking at the week of August 15th to have the county prep kickoff with the counties. So more information to come on that in the next 2 weeks. Next is the planning for the pre and post implementation support. And as Rachel had also indicated, this is really stemming across for that county prep period, that 45 days pre-go live, and then also the support structure for the 60 days post-go live. So more information to come on those as the teams continue to work to provide those updates, as those work groups also do have a lot of activities between now and the end of August. Next is the help desk. The county delegated admin training has been completed, and then the fulfiller training begins next week. So all of the activities continue to be on schedule for that as well. Lastly, the county ad hoc reports. This has been a collaborative effort, both from a ad hoc education sessions. There were 10 of them for each of the Wave 1 counties. And then lastly is the identification of the reports as well as the prioritization of them of the reports that the counties will need to have refactored. And it is noted here that Placer has 0 reports to refactor at this time. And YOLO and the team has been working through understanding the number of reports that require refactoring and working together to be able to develop that or develop those queries and test them on time and on schedule. Moving forward to the next slide. The next slide is really focused on the county readiness summary. So at the top, you'll see the same readiness areas, and then there's also just our watch items for both Placer and YOLO, the integration, the IPT, the firewalls, and making sure that all of those activities remain on schedule, and also that the progress towards remediating some of the challenges that have come up are continuing to be a priority for both the project and the county. The one item that we do include in our readiness dashboard are summaries of all of the different activities that have been completed. And the activities come from the readiness checklist that the implementation team and the TOS teams work together with the counties, the IPOCs, and the other county point of contacts. And so the chart on the bottom left of the screen highlights the progress to date for each one of the counties as of Friday, July 15th, where you can start to see the amount of work that and the activities that have been completed, the ones that are not started, but also noting that they're not started because there are still activities coming between now and go live. And then also that the number of activities that are in progress. So there has been tremendous amount of effort from the counties as well as the project to continue to be on schedule as we monitor and go forward with all of the different readiness areas. Lastly, on the screen is also a visualization of the activities, the number of activities in that pie chart of aligned to the 7 readiness areas of the ones coming up in the next 30 days. So for the month of August, there will be another 75 activities that will either be initiated or started or completed. So again, tremendous progress along the way for both Placer and YOLO. John, I see that you came on.
Yeah, real quick, Catherine, thank you for going through this. For our future CalSAWS counties, this is going to be sort of a rinse and repeat. So as you're looking through this and looking at wave 1, envision where your county is at in these particular areas. We're going to start to bring them up to speed and look at those. One area of, I think, focus, especially for our public assistance departments, is collaboration if you have a county IT department. We've seen that sometimes it's outside of the human assistance department's control. County IT might be doing some consolidation of locations, changing your point of presence for CalSAWS connectivity, and we're coordinating through those items. We've been coordinating through that and mitigating that risk with Placer. It was a little bit of a last minute change. We're doing the same thing right now with Santa Clara County and working with Santa Clara County on some moves that they have to do in order to mitigate that risk and sort of work through that. So proactively for future waves, whatever changes your county IT department may be having or planning that could impact their bandwidth on connectivity for CalSAWS and things like that, it's important that that outreach happen as quickly as possible. And Catherine, I noticed that Albert has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you for the information. I know that it was very high level at a glance for this presentation, but I think that for us later waves, if you have a log or something that you're tracking, even if it's blank, if we can see a little bit more detail of the items that are being tracked, that would also allow us in our thinking as we prepare to move forward. So if you can share that with the waves, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you, and we will take that back, and we will definitely provide the a summary of the readiness checklist items. And so that way for the later waves, you can also just get a better sense of what the project will be tracking, as well as who's responsible for which area.
Thank you.
And I see Elaine has her hand up.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you, Catherine, for that, for going through that. That was very helpful. In alignment with what Alberto was saying, this might be a similar question. Did I hear you say that, so the counties get their checklist and the checklist is what drives the progress on this dashboard? Is that how it works? Is that how you get the percentages of the progress being made?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And there, also just to further elaborate, there is with the checklist at T-10 for just point of reference, the T-10 mark is also where the TOS team begins to work with your counties. And so there is an ongoing collaboration of tracking the activities that will feed into this dashboard view. And so I will say that it's not just here's a checklist and then, everybody just goes down the list, but there is a collaboration to share that information bi-directional from the project, the TOS teams with the counties as well.
Catherine,
Okay.
thanks for mentioning the sort of the T-10 time frame.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, this is quite a challenging schedule when we start stacking those waves. You can see that in the conversion presentation that was done. And it's the same thing with sort of the implementation readiness. And when we're doing that, we know that every single county wants this information now and wants as much information so you can do that. And I believe, as Albert stated, starting to get draft materials out, having you guys look at that, making sure you're orienting, getting your questions and things like that. But that really on-site with our TOS team, which is temporary on-site support, will commence at T-10, 10 minutes prior to your cutover. And it'll either be in person or virtual, county's preference on that. We're willing to do either. But that's when we have to be working sort of incrementally so that we could take care of the previous waves as well as serve the future waves. And, to be honest, it's quite a challenge. So if we're not giving you everything right now, future waves, hold on, a little bit of patience would be great. We're coming.
I know we've already had comments from the PSC. Are there any other comments from the PSC on this? All right, are there any comments from the public? Right. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and we will move on to the UAT status update.
Good morning, PSC. Can everyone hear me? I'm having some issues with my laptop, so I'm having to join via my phone. So I'll apologize in advance for no video.
We can hear you, Peggy. Thank you.
Okay, all righty. So let's get started. So here on our first slide, you will see where we are with our CalSAWS CalWIN UAT. So we have the same color code. So all of the items in blue are things that have been completed, which include our plan being approved, the selection and confirmation of all of our participants for UAT, the loading of our users and environments and applications, our completion of our test script development, and our environment setup. For Group 1, we have completed our UAT application training. Our Group 2 folks are in the process now of doing their training, completing their training, which includes LMS training, and then we will be doing some facilitated trainings with them in the next few weeks. For our execution kickoff, we've completed that with our Group 1 folks. Our Group 2 participants are currently in the kickoff meeting. So it started yesterday. We had our first kickoff with half of our Group 2 participants. And today we're winding up with the rest of our participants. And then our group 1 test execution is scheduled to be completed this week. And our group 2 testers will be on board next week, beginning their test execution. Next slide, please. So this slide just quickly tells you for group 1 what our participation has been. So we've done in excess of 430 UAT scenarios that covers 6 functional and program areas, which are the CAPI area, lobby management, welfare to work, CalWorks, CalFresh, and childcare. We've had over 130 participants, and these 130 participants represent all 18 CalWin counties. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you will see the status of our test script. So for group 1, as I stated earlier, the execution started on June 27th, and we have completed the stats as of last Friday were 78% of our planned scripts executed, and 80% of those have passed. And we're hoping to wrap that up by the end of the week. For group 2, we will start on Monday, and our areas again that we will be doing execution on scripts include our Medi-Cal CMSP, GAGR, foster care AAP and KINGAP, fiscal and reports, including OPOI, our hearings area and QA. And like I stated, the group 2 participants are currently in the second day of the UAT execution kickoff. Our total scripts for group 1 are 438, and we have, worked very hard to get those all completed, and we are hopefully going to get done by Friday. I'm going to turn it over to Saranjan to provide the details on slide number 4. Next slide.
Good morning, everybody. So extending further to what Peggy shared about execution details. So the table here depicts the defects that have been created. And I want to be very clear that even though the number looks a little larger, but as you can see, 28 out of 36 defects that were created are in pending reject state, which means that the CalSOS system is functioning as designed. These were questions and concerns that Calvin counties had raised, and we wrote them as defects so that the further evaluation can be done. These defects are being shared with the ISS team, with the implementation team, with the application team, so that they can further evaluate as to how to answer those questions in terms of update to training or new job aids or maybe future SCRs. So to sum it all up, CalSOS application, which is in production for the counties, is working well, and we haven't found any major issues. So that's good news. The section down below here is some of the feedback that we have heard from the participants and what you would like to know. The counties, the participants, the 130 participants that Peggy talked about, majority have expressed that CalSOS system is easy to navigate, and them participating in UAT has given them a better understanding of CalSOS and how to work in CalSOS with their own data and real life scenarios. This time around for UAT, we also use JIRA as the tool to consolidate all aspects of training together, which means how to execute the scenarios, write the finding, create defect. That has been appreciated by the users because it was easy to navigate, and all the items that they needed to know or use for having a good UAT experience was there at their hand using just one tool. On a team basis, as Keith and John were talking about, one team, the teams have worked together very well. the counties are helping one another out. The way it has been organized is that every program area is in a separate breakout room, and counties are helping one another out in explaining the functionality, understanding the functionality. So there is a high level of collaboration between the users. That's an amazing sight to see. But one item that we have learned, the counties have had issues in getting access to multiple environments that are being used for UAT. So for group 2, we have learned the lesson. We have created a work group with all relevant parties, ForgeRock, Tech Team, UAT team, to ensure that folks get individual attention and their access is settled as soon as possible so that they can focus on execution in group 2 that starts on July 25th. So that's where we are at with UAT. And with that, I'll hand it over to Vina for further comments or questions.
Are there any comments or questions from the PSC?
Hey, Wena, this is John. I was wondering with any of our PSC members that have UAT testers from our future CalSAWS counties or CalWIN counties, I was wondering if they've gotten any feedback on the UAT effort from their staff. Just curious.
Hey, John, this is Anna from San Francisco. I did get feedback from Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and of course, Solano. And all of them really are into the thick of things, like just finished off UAT 1 and then kicking off the second group for UAT. But nothing stands out besides that it seems to be working just fine at this point. So we're progressing.
So to summarize it, things are going well with UAT testing. There's no real showstoppers. There's some differences, and sort of bridging those differences is what they're looking at and things like that. But from the feedback that you've received, Anna, it's proceeding well.
It sounds, yeah, that's what I have in my notes. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Elaine has her hand.
Yes, thank you, John. We're in a very similar place in Ventura County, and one thing that has come up, the staff have been asking about, is what will be done with the feedback that was provided. I know there were some challenges in the beginning with a few things that were being course corrected, but that was just a question that had come up. So I don't know if how that would happen, or if that's something to be discussed or here or another time.
This is Peggy, and I'll start, and Saranjan, you can certainly chime in. We are tracking all of the feedback that we've gotten thus far. Any Q&A that we received, we are tracking that on a spreadsheet, and that is going to be provided so that all the counties have access to it. And we have an action item to follow up with any outstanding or follow-up items that we have from any of our testers. We are working with them to make sure they have an opportunity to come back and retest or look at any items that had a comment, even if it's not a defect. So we'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks, and we will be providing a summary of all the items, to this group for next month's PSC. Saranjan?
Yeah, Peggy, you covered it. Ilan, as I was saying, that we have put in a process that the feedback that we are receiving from the users are not just application related. If there is a feedback that requires further enhancing and giving counties some tools to address the concerns they have, that is also being utilized. We are sharing that information with implementation team and other teams so that if there is additional information to be shared, will be shared. So as Peggy said, we are documenting that. We'll, as we finish testing, we will have a report out to you all as to how the concerns have been mitigated or what plan has been put in place to mitigate those questions and concerns that we have heard. John, I see you come off mute.
Yeah, Saranjan, thank you. Maybe to summarize, I think, Elaine, there's two different types of feedback that we received. One is process on just running UAT. And as Peggy and Saranjan said, the process to be able to make the UAT for future phases and groups of scripts, they're taking those and they're implementing those real time to try to take care of access problems, navigation issues, those types of things, and provide that process improvement. The other type of feedback is maybe, for lack of a better term, expectation gaps. And I think Saranjan said that they might be, perceive the functionality is different or how I'm going to do that. There's an analysis going on that says, okay, that doesn't mean that the system is going to have to change, but is there a change management component that's helping the county bridge that expectation gap? Yes, no, or else, hey, we have something that we have to go through, and sort of looking at that. I think that then is going to, we have to validate that and see where we're at to say, is this something that has been accommodated through change management, or is this something that maybe is a future enhancement that we have to do? And in the interim, what do we do with the counties? And that's sort of a work in progress, but we're going to be very transparent in making sure that those things, whether they be process or functionally focused, come back. And I think as there's findings on these things, actually coming back to PSC and starting to talk about those items.
Thank you, John. That distinction is very helpful. Thank you.
Comments or questions? All right, were there any public comments? I know we went back. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to our benefits cal update now.
Perfect. And I'm going to have owner Sedman, one of my my colleagues here, that's going to help me with the presentation for the final acceptance preview. But wanted to just give everybody a little bit of a backdrop on the overview for benefits cal final acceptance. What the overall intent is around acceptance is to confirm 3 items in particular. One is that we've met the requirements that were specifically targeted for what was designated as phase 1. There were multiple phases in the requirements, but the phase 1 was the first to be confirmed. The second is that within the 30 days following implementation, that all deficiencies have been corrected. One note I just want to mention about that is the original intent was to have the post-implementation period take place right after the implementation in September. And given that we had Los Angeles that had moved their date out, we extended that period of time to encompass from September, which was the go live date for the C4 counties, all the way to 30 days post Los Angeles. So it was an extended period of time that we had for the acceptance period of time. And then the last is that we had an implementation completion report to submit. That was in a final product that summarized all of the things that took place as part of this effort. So that's what the confirmation is that's involved with final acceptance. In January of this year, we went through and talked about what we need to confirm and certify what is an acceptance. We have submitted that final report that has been completed. And right now we're at the stage of confirming whether or not we're good to go on acceptance. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a framework around where we are with benefits cal for acceptance, and we'll get into some details. John, you came off of mute.
Yeah, and I think you hit it, but just to bring it home, as we look at that, look at this, on all of our contracts, especially on DD&I efforts, from design, development, implementation, there's a contractual provision where we hold back part of the deliverable payments until there is acceptance that validates, hey, our partner has met their contractual obligations on these, or else if they haven't, there's some reason of why it isn't there, or the requirements changed or modified and things like that. And at the particular time we validate them, the little bit of money that we held back, we release to them. Now, that doesn't change anything other than it releases the holdback. The things that are planned going forward and everything else like that are still going forward. Service level agreements still exist and things like that. What we like to do is come to both our PSC and our JPA board and orient both PSC and JPA as we come up on these milestones and before we release these payments, to ensure that both PSC and JPA understand, see if there's any concerns that we need to address. We'll be coming back next month with that. And then by the contract, I'm authorized to be able to sign off on that and release that. But I want to make sure that there's transparency to PSC and JPA for that. And if there's any concerns, we're addressing those concerns prior to doing the final sign off on that. So Rachel's going through all of these things just to give you that status of where things are. And I think it's really good news for Benefits Cal as we come up on this. Actually, we've achieved this milestone, and you'll see that through this, but as we come up on that.
Yeah, thanks, John, for the additional context. Appreciate that. Okay, so the next slide you should all be familiar with that we have had in the past. But given that we're at acceptance now, we thought it would be a good opportunity to just take a look back about what we've accomplished since Go Live. So we're nearing 750,000 applications that have been submitted. We're at north of 5.8 million documents that have been uploaded since Go Live last September. And we're starting to see some upticks in the usage of changes that are reported to north of 100,000 changes that individuals on an ongoing basis are saying, I've had a change in my circumstance in life, and I want to make sure that that change is getting reported. We've got north of 1,500 CBOs that are active users right now with Benefits Cal across the 40 counties. 90,000 households have submitted applications that cross multiple programs. Historically, those multiple programs are typically CalFresh and Medi-Cal is what we are seeing in our numbers. We have also seen out of the 19 languages that are available, that 10,000 applications out of that 750,000 have been submitted in a language other than English. We've had just about 750,000 people that have linked their cases. So that means that they have applied or they were customers beforehand and they now have cases and they're actively using it to view their EBT balances, their notices, and to make sure that they're keeping current with their requirements for compliance. We've had more than half of individuals manage their benefits using a mobile device, and we haven't had any slowdowns that take place between what has been submitted from an application or a document directly to the worker. So all of that has directly gone across, and that was one of the things that we focused on, was making sure we were providing information in real time that's coming from Benefits Cal to CalSAWS. Two other metrics just really quickly here is we've had 130,000 households that have completed their renewals or their recertifications for Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and CalWorks. And we've had north of 116,000 individuals that have submitted their SAR-7s as well. So adoption keeps getting larger. You know, there's, I'll say, always opportunity to increase the adoption metrics to get more people to use Benefits Cal, especially for those ongoing activities. And that's where we're going to be focusing a lot of our efforts going forward. Okay, owner, sir, if you could come on camera, we'll turn over to get a little bit of an overview about where we sit with incidents and the system performance.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Next, we would like to briefly walk you through some key highlights on the service desk incidents and the production deficiency resolutions for the phase 1 of the Benefiscal. As Rachel highlighted earlier, our Benefiscal journey together started in September 2021 with the initial release. And as it relates to phase 1, as of June 23rd of this year, there is no critical or high severity system deficiencies in open or unresolved status. And if you take a closer look at the incidents, since September 2021 go live up until the 30 days following the LA County rollout, team received and analyzed 798 help desk incidents reported through the ServiceNow, which translated into 47 distinct system deficiencies. And all of these items are resolved as of right now. And in addition to these, within the first 90 days following the release 1 go live in September, team resolved 181 deficiencies through the production monitoring, and as well as we delivered release 1.1, 1.2 major releases to production as well with additional system improvements. And following the first 90 days, we worked in close collaboration with consortium, counties, and the project team holistically for the LA County rollout. And in addition to the LA County rollout, we also delivered 8 more threshold languages during the release 3 itself, on top of the initial 12 threshold that we have. And we also resolved 237 deficiencies through the production monitoring process following the LA County rollout as well. And as we look forward, we are actively currently working towards the upcoming rollouts for the Calvin counties through the 6 waves, as Catherine and Rachel highlighted earlier, but as well as preparing for the upcoming future major releases as well, including this fall and early next year. If we can move on to the next slide, please. As it relates to the Benefiscal system performance since go live, we have been measuring and monitoring these key performance metrics daily, and we have been reporting on a monthly basis on those. And I would like to briefly share a couple of highlights on those with you. The first metric you see here is on the daily online transactions for Benefiscal. It's primarily on the inquiry screens you see in the application, where the query results has a limit or a bound. And for these transactions, 99.5% of these online transactions, the response time was less than 2 seconds, where the system consistently exceeded the 98% target since the go live up until today. And if we can move on to the next slide, please. The second metric is primarily about the daily online transactions on Benefiscal, primarily on the inquiry screens that you see in the application, where the results that the user sees has no limit, right? And for these kind of transactions on the system, the 99.58% of these transactions has a response time less than 2 seconds, where the system again exceeded the 98% target time since the go live up until now. And if you can move on to the last slide, please. Oh, perfect, thank you. And lastly, with regards to the system performance on the Benefiscal hosted daily API transactions, primarily these are the web service calls to send or receive data, which is displayed to the customer on the presentation. The 99.99% of these transactions, the response time was again less than 2 seconds, which exceeded the performance target we had for the system since go live as well. So overall summary across these 3 metrics that I just walked you through right now, the system has been consistently exceeding the performance targets for these key performance indicators. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Next, we would like to walk you through the Benefiscal requirements and delivery completion from the final acceptance standpoint, as Rachel highlighted in the beginning. And as it relates to phase 1, originally there were around 170 functional and technical requirements listed, and which got elaborated into 237 detailed requirements throughout the requirement elaboration phase of the project. And from delivery standpoint, for these out of these 237 requirements, 227 of them are already met and delivered and available in production right now. And you may ask the question, how about the remaining 10? So regarding the remaining 10 requirements, they are either moved or reallocated through the formal key decision process by consortium leadership. What that means is, like out of these 10, like 5 of these are to be delivered in subsequent releases, and the remaining ones, hours are reallocated to accommodate upcoming enhancements for the system. Lastly, in addition to the 227 requirements which are met and delivered in production, the team also delivered additional 7,400 plus hours of usability and advocate requested enhancements during the release 1 timeline of the implementation in September timeframe last year. With that, I will be handing back to Rachel for a quick summary on the final acceptance. Yeah.
So next steps, and we've got 2 next steps. What this surmounts to is then the request of the consortium to approve Benefits Cal given the completion of the activities relative to have discussed, which is we've completed the requirements that were set forth relative to the release for Benefits Cal, that we have completed our post-implementation completion report, that we have resolved our outstanding incidents or any incidents that were identified, not just as part of the 30 days immediately, but owner had shared it was an extended 8 months of time, not just 30 days, that we had resolved those, that we have addressed all of our deficiencies or anything that was outstanding, that we've done that as well. And so the project team going forward, as John had talked about earlier, this does not mean that there isn't maintenance and operations. We still have ongoing maintenance and operations that we need to do for Benefits Cal, in addition to additional releases that will be coming up at the end of this month, at the end of September, and then also a large release plan for next January, in addition to our interim releases that we do as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Pepper from our quality assurance team to provide their perspective, because we work hand in hand on this final acceptance with the QA team. Kristen?
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Good morning, everyone. And I want to just talk through and confirm everything that Rachel and owner have provided. The QA team has been a part of that step through all of those activities. We have confirmed their deliverables. As you see here, we believe that they are on track to gain final acceptance. We completed the update to the requirements traceability, and just this week, on Tuesday night, there was a release that completed all of those outstanding defects and resolved all of them within the system. And just this morning, we were able to get resolution of the final comment on the comment log. Because of the timing of those activities, we did not have checked boxes on these, but I can confirm with you as of this morning, we are good to go with each of those items. In addition to that, QA will continue to participate in continuous improvement activities in collaboration with our Benefit Cal partner. And this includes release management and functional enhancements, technical maintenance, service level agreement and performance reviews. As the teams perform those activities, the QA team reviews those and conducts a very detailed analysis, as well as service desk management in the review of those help desk tickets that come in. So with that, just to summarize, the QA seal of approval will be included on our slide for next month. Thank you. And with Rachel, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Kristen. And I wanted to take the action item that John had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. Just wanted to make sure that we were closing out on one action item before we end the session on Benefits Cal. There had been a request to understand how many accounts have been created specifically for Los Angeles County customers until the current date from when Los Angeles went live, relative to how many accounts existed in your benefits now previously. So wanted to share a couple of numbers. To date, there have been 327,823 accounts that have been created in Benefits Cal since their go live in April. In YBN, there were north of 4.7 million accounts that had been created over the lifetime of YBN. Of those 4.7 million accounts that had been, I'll say, created and accessed, it may be a little bit of an important distinction where someone had created it and then actually accessed it and logged in. Of the 4.7 million, we had identified that just north of 1 million of those 4.7 million accounts had been accessed, leading up to go live for a period of 6 months. So 6 months prior to go live, we saw that that YBN users had accessed their account. And then we also had sliced the information a little bit further there to look at how many people were frequent users of YBN 6 months prior to go live, a year prior to go live, and a year and a half prior to go live. And what a frequent user is, somebody that logged in at least one time per month. So there were 141,000 individuals that had logged in at least one time per month in the 6 months before YBN had decommissioned. There were 93,554 individuals that had logged in at least once per month the year leading up to the decommissioning of YBN. And the year and a half before, there were 63,461 individuals. So wanted to just share that information that we had pulled around not just account creation, but also to give an idea about usage adoption as well in the previous system.
And Rachel, the complexity of those numbers that you just walked through probably deserve a slide.
Sure.
So
yes.
I think that we can have that slide created on that action item.
Will do.
Get that out publicly to our PSC members, our JPA members, and make sure that it's there, but sort of walking through that methodology.
Yep.
And means of comparison.
Yep.
There's also been some public comment in chat about disaggregating some of these numbers. This is not a new request. It's sort of looking at what platforms they're coming from, like Get CalFresh and things like that. We will also take that back, split those out, provide those. And then one of the action items we'll take as a team is seeing how we start providing disaggregated data in more of a public forum and push that out to a website or something else like that. But we're going to have to take that back as an action item to be able to do that, because this is a reoccurring request and I don't think that we've closed it out. So we need to look at how we do that and push that out publicly. So we'll take that as an action item, Winna, and report back out to PSC next month on our plans for doing that.
Are there any comments from the PSC on the benefits cal update? Hi, Dorothy. Dorothy?
Sorry, no comments.
Okay.
It was an accident click.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
Hi, this is Jennifer from the CalSouth Advocates Group. I have a few questions. With the slide 36, where it talks about the deficiencies that have been corrected, was the enhancements list reviewed to ensure that there weren't any deficiencies listed in the enhancements list of the 400 plus items that have been identified as things to review and potentially resolve or prioritize?
Yes, Jen. So the enhancements list are truthfully enhancements where they were not part of either a baseline requirement or the design. If there was a design deficiency, that is treated as a deficiency. But if it was something that was, we did compare against those. Yes.
Yeah, there's a process we go through to be able to see whether it's a deficiency or an enhancement.
Yeah.
The 400 enhancement requests are truly enhancements, and the defects are things that we go through, and on the defects, we have warranties on those to be able to get those things fixed and through the process.
Thank you for that process clarification. On slide 42, where it has the 5 items that were moved from phase 1 and the hours are reallocated, does that mean that those items won't be delivered at all? Or can you tell me more about that part?
Owner, can you lean in a little bit on this one? I know that
Sure.
you've been intimately involved with each of these requirements.
Sure. Yeah, there were like those 5 that you mentioned, like hours are reallocated. Those hours are going to be utilized for future enhancements to be decided, obviously, could be through the collaboration model, Jennifer, since you are part of it, or the consortiums like production emergencies, but based on the business priorities, fundamentally. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't asking about the hours. I was asking about the actual 5 items. What's happened to those deliverables?
You mean the requirements tied to originally for those hours going, backwards tied to that. So those, yes, these are from the disposition standpoint. Maybe Joel, you can, chime in from the consortium's standpoint, but those requirements will not be, prioritized, at least in the short term, until unless a business, priority is identified tied to those.
Yeah, so Jen, maybe to clarify, the top 5, 11, 12, 105, 105, and 89, those will be delivered in a subsequent release. So the original requirement will be delivered.
Correct.
So those 5 are just going to get delivered later. There's a dependency to make sure that we're delivering them along with CalSAWS. So we want to make sure that we're doing that together.
Right.
The last 5 are items that were removed. And those are they're sub-requirements that are actually not going to be delivered are the last 5. So through conversations, the requirements themselves were items that came back to either be things that didn't align with policy, or it was something that wasn't able to be implemented fully. So there were a couple of items that fell into that category, which are these bottom 5 items. The 105, 37, and 8.
Thank you. And I did look at the list to see what those were, and I couldn't find all of them. I think some things might have gotten broken out a little bit more. Is it possible to have an updated list loaded to the SharePoint for us?
Yes, we can do that.
I might have one more question. On slide 38, I think, my print is kind of small, where it shows the tickets and stuff like that. I just want to note that Benefits Cal doesn't have a way for consumers to directly report the technical issues that they might be encountering. And we're concerned that CalSAWS doesn't have as much visibility as they could have in what consumers are experiencing. The website says if you have a technical issue, click here, and then it refers people to call the county. And we know that sometimes people are calling the county to get their issue resolved, but a lot of times people are waiting a long time and they might not take the time to do that. And so I just want to reiterate, and I know I've shared this in other forums before, that there really does need to be a place directly on Benefits Cal for people to report the issues that they're experiencing so that we can have full visibility into what a consumer's experience is with Benefits Cal and what barriers they're facing. I think it's great that y'all have been able to resolve the tickets that have come in, but we're really concerned that there's some information missing about what people's experiences are. And I just want to reiterate again, the need to have a direct way for people to report issues that they're experiencing.
Thanks, Jen. That's noted. Tomorrow at our JPA board, we have a change notice going to our JPA board to be able to set up a Benefits Cal technical help desk. And not to go into the details of that, it isn't a direct link, but it is to be able to receive a warm handoff from the various counties when there is a technical issue so that we can jointly remediate that with the customer, the county, and the project to be able to do that. So that's some incremental items, and we have noted your other comment.
Thank you. That's great. And I, again, having people call the county is an impact to the call center. If there's any way to allow people to directly share what's happening through the website, that is the best way to serve customers.
And for your comments. Any other comments from the public before we move on? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go to the multi-factor authentication update.
Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Tamakian. I'll be covering this section. So we enabled a multi-factor authentication. This is for the new folks. This is whenever you're logging in, you get a message that's texted when you have SMS enabled, and you can enter that code to get into our application, into CalSOS applications. So that was implemented, and as of the 13th of July, we have only 138 folks that have set SMS as their primary multi-factor authentication method. The top 3 counties so far are Shasta, Kern, and Riverside. We have a total of 38 counties who have opted in for this feature, but it seems like they haven't taken advantage just yet. So we would encourage the folks start using that. Trinity was not originally opted in. They have requested to opt in, so that request is pending. We're working on that to get them activated. Another thing that we heard was, can we have a feature similar to what Microsoft Office 365 has, where you can get a phone call with that code to log in. It's not something that's available out of the box currently, and it requires some custom work and testing to get that enabled, but we are looking at that. A few lessons learned from this activity is that we'd like everyone to register for SMS for the counties that opted in. This is to allow the county delegated admin to switch easily from email to SMS. If there is some sort of interruption at the counties with the email service, you have to be registered at least once for SMS for you to be able to switch over easily. So we recommend doing that if possible. Also, we did get some, we have been working with all the counties. There's a lot of security tightening that the counties have been doing, and we've noticed that sometimes these OTP emails or MFA emails, which are the codes that are being sent out, are getting delayed via email. So we have sent out some instructions, a CIT, about allow listing some of these the newer email addresses that we'll be sending emails from. And also, if there's antivirus scans that your county is doing on the county servers, we wanted to see if you can update the configuration to enable the necessary throughput because of the increased emails that'll be coming in via OTP. So that being said, a CIT will be sent out as a reminder to do these 2 items, and that'll be coming out shortly. Next slide, please. Also, we did get a request to reduce the amount of MFA frequency. We understand that every time someone is logging in, they have to go through this MFA process. And so we are looking for a solution. The approach that we're looking at right now is to recognize the device browser that the users are logging in from, and allowing a certain period of time for the user to be logged in before requesting MFA. Currently, this we are moving this proof of concept into a lower environment. So we hopefully can get that out soon once that proves out. The other, the third item that we have was the session timeout for third-party applications. These are applications like imaging and Click, where when someone logs into one of those services like reports and spends over 20 minutes there, and then comes back into CalSOS, then you have to do MFA again. So we are working with those third-party vendors to get some agreement and a solution to that. This is kind of a little bit out of our control, but we are working closely with those vendors to work on a solution with them, as they must make changes on their end for this to function. And that's it for me. I'll pass it back to Winna.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the PSC? Seeing none, are there any public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead to the help desk ticket update.
Hi, Wena. This is Arnold Malvik with Accenture again. If we could just page back up to that first slide, there were 3 bullet points on there that I wanted to cover before going through where we are with our service desk metrics. And it was just questions that came out of our last PSC and JPA sessions last month. And so if you take a look at it, it's the 3 questions are how to get a quicker response, escalation path for tickets. There's really two ways of doing that. One is direct call to the contact centers or the service desks, and the other is through the region managers. So that's the conduit that can bring those tickets up to the attention of the project team. The second point was we were asked to produce a ticket backlog report by county and expected closure timeframe. So the team has produced a draft of that report and we'll be sending it out to the regional managers within the next couple of days after we do some internal reviews on that. And then the third bullet point was around number of tickets closed without response or confirmation of resolution. And so what that refers to is the fact that the established process for ticket closure is to document the resolution and then send the ticket for closure to the service desk. That basically occurs, and there's a notification that's sent to the end user who opened the ticket. If there's no response from that, the service desk closes the ticket. And the way that we can measure that is produce metrics on reopens, because the course of action in the event that the response did not resolve the issue is 1, to either reopen that same ticket or 2, open a new ticket. Unfortunately, there isn't a systemic way of being able to track whether the users have provided confirmation that their question or issue was resolved, but we will be able to produce reporting around reopens, and we'll include that in upcoming decks. So with that, then we can move to our next slide. And this was around the fact that over the last 6 months, we've really been tracking one of our core metrics, which is around the closure of tickets, and is it being done within the SLA. And happy to give the June results, which we forecasted we were going to be about a 90% closure rate, because we knew that we were coming down the curve of clearing the backlog and that we're going to see the upward trend, and we are seeing that upward trend. We actually achieved 90.2%. As we look forward to July and August, we continue to expect to see that trend line to continue to climb, with a forecast of hitting the 98%, which is the target by the September timeframe. And again, that's because there's still some tickets in that July and August timeframe which have exceeded the SLA in the closure timeframe, and we need to finish clearing out that backlog. The chart below actually gives us the view of our calculation, which was assumed that we were getting 3,000 tickets per month, and that we were assuming a 2% exceedance rate of roughly 60 tickets a month on that 3,000. And so that's how we came up to the 95%, 93%, 98% for July, August, and September, respectively. If we move on to the next slide, we're still continuing to track our closure reasons and feeding that into the CIT and enhanced communication process, because what we're seeing is the consistent trend of, in April, we had 49% of the tickets that were closed with a how-to question, or it wasn't really a system error, it was the system's operating as designed, or further explanation provided. We saw that dip to 39% in May, and in June, it increased again to 58%. So the team is tracking those trends on those questions and enhancing our CIT so we can get those answers out to the end user community and hopefully avoid further of those tickets coming in. The good thing that you'll notice here is that if you look at the closure rate is decreasing, because on the next slide, if we can go ahead and go to it, we're going to see that the number of tickets, the inflow has dramatically increased, or decreased. So if you take a look at the chart in the lower right-hand side, you'll see that in April, we had 3,000 tickets opened. In May, 2,900 tickets. And then in June, we saw a decrease down to 2,200 tickets, or 216 tickets. And this is a direct result of the focus the team has been putting, as well as the communications going out to the user community around some of those common issues that we're seeing. So we're able to answer the questions before a ticket's even created. So we're seeing an excellent trend on a reduction of the inflow in tickets, as well as the ability of the team to resolve those in a timely fashion. And you can see that on the lower left-hand chart, to where we had 46 incidents that missed the SLA during the month of June, down from 172 in May. So the emphasis that the team is placing on the closing those tickets, resolving the issues, is resulting in a very positive trend on overall responsiveness. So if we move on to the next slide. So the other items that we look at, and these are the additional actions that we have been doing, are taking, has been Accenture and Gainwell have been meeting every Thursday to cover the ticket handling processes and the trends, and looking at just how, what are those items that we can communicate outward, both to the service desks or to the end user community, in order to answer some of those high density questions where we're getting a lot of those tickets. In addition, we're scheduling monthly help desk operations meetings. And so that is where we're getting the feedback from the desks, and it's bi-directional. It's coming from the project teams to the desks on upcoming changes, as well as trends that we're seeing as we close out the tickets. In addition, the service desk is coming back with observations on things or topics where additional communication could be helpful for the user community. The other item or channel that we're using is just the weekly email communication with the management, the leads across the teams. And this includes the counties as well. And so that's really putting the focus and putting it in front the experience of working the tickets within a timely fashion, really focusing in on the problem management. So if multiple users are reporting the same issue, identifying that, and then being able to get communication or resolution out. And then the final is linking the problems to the JIRA items. So if there's a software change that is required, we're tracking that through JIRA. So if you take a look, and I see that in the question, the service level agreements are going to vary based upon the severity of the ticket. I think that Keith had talked a little bit about that before around those P1s is what's the really critical system down broad impact. And then P2s, the severity goes down by the P2, which is more of a focused. The SLA actually is set for each one of those priority levels. And what I'll do is in the next session, we'll go ahead and to pull a refresher of the matrix that describes what that SLA or what that time for closure is for each of those priority levels and the way that that priority is determined. So I'll bring that forward in our next discussion. If we move on to the next slide. I'll go ahead and transition into the SLA retrospective, because this was also related, and I'll transition it back to Winna. So we move to the SLA retrospective, move on to the next slide. There's a series of 20 service level agreements that Accenture is contractually bound to. It's included in our agreement with the consortium. And we've been tracking our performance against that, and happy to report that we are seeing consistent performance for the month of June. If you look at it, we were green and met the SLAs other than the two items, one of which I talked about, which was the monthly help desk diagnosis time, where we're seeing a healthy trend back up to the 98% target. And then the second is SLA number 12, which is the daily off-prime business hours. And that's the eligibility determination and calculation, the EDBC response time. And what we continue to see there is that on the weekends, there's a significantly low volume that occurs during off hours, and it's 1 or 2 transactions that exceed the SLA on it. And it's usually because those transactions have a multiple time period look back, which causes just more activity against the application and the database and causes the response time to increase to up to 10 seconds. So we're continuing to monitor those occurrences to see if there's other tuning opportunities. But in overall, the application is performing well for the 40 counties, and we're looking forward to bringing the other 43 on, or the other 18 on. So with that, Winna, I will go ahead and transition back to you for any questions.
Are there any comments from the PSC or questions?
There, this is Cindy from Kern County. Thank you for all that presentation and for following back up on the help desk ticket discussion that we had previously. I had a question or suggestion, or maybe just putting this out for a suggestion about when the phases of the Calhoun counties come on board. Is there a plan to add additional resources to these help desks functions so that way you're not seeing a lapse again? And I'm certain there is, but I'm wondering if we could maybe hear about it in the months to come.
Absolutely, and that'll be a tag team effort, or with Rachel as well, because as we look forward to each of these conversion events, we're actually mobilizing a command center as well as resources out at the counties to support, as well as additional functional resources to address those questions. So within those 30 days after each of those go live events, there's going to be a dedicated team working with the counties, acting as the funnel for these questions coming in, as well as on the back end, we'll continue to be monitoring the inflow and the trends there. So yes, we've taken some lessons learned from the previous implementations, and we're enhancing multiple levels of the support organization to keep us within that.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate, I liked some of the suggested topics that you're going to be including, like some articles, refresher training, some more resource documents that we can use in our county. So thank you, appreciate that. I think that will be helpful, especially a lot of your calls you were indicating a lot of them were about how-tos, and so that right. I think will help us in the counties.
And Cindy,
right.
Specifically tomorrow we have a change notice going to the JPA board for enhanced support from the Accenture help desk to be able to keep up with the volume of tickets, because we know as we bring on additional counties. So we got some approval through our budget to have additional resources to be able to do that. But as Arnold said, it's a two-pronged approach. Yes, we need to have increased capacity to be able to do that, but there's enhanced support for each one of the waves 60 days after they go live. And that enhanced support has a command center and some on-site folks that are there that are really trying to get real-time things to our counties that are converting, so that hopefully they could be quick questions, things like that. We can answer those and not have the need to do a ticket. But if we do have to do a ticket on those things, we have the capacity to do it. So there's a 60-day period where we have worked with the Deloitte team on ISS to put that in place. We're supplementing that with all of our partners, from QA to Gainwell to Accenture to the consortium, to do that. And those are the things that we're working on. So going all the way back to the beginning on the risk that we're talking about, those plans for wave one are still in process. We have theoretically sort of stacked hands on those things. And now what we're doing is doing the resource plan on those things. So that's what we're working through on that.
Okay, sounds good. I can ponder back to when we had our ISOs to C4, and so probably something similar to that. That would be great. Thanks for the follow-up.
Andy, are there any other comments or questions from the PSC? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the public?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Okay, Shalon, go ahead.
So going back to the help desk conversation for a second. So what happens in the situation where the county believes the system isn't working according to policy, however, the system is working as designed? So, or it's believed that or determined the system is working as designed. So what's the process for that? Is that an enhancement request, or are we actually following through and investigating that ticket?
Shalon, we are investigating that ticket. And if there needs to be a policy clarification sent over to the state, or else it needs to go back to a committee to say that maybe there is a difference opinion between users of the system on whether it's meeting policy, not meeting policy, it'll get referred back to a committee. If necessary, there'll be a policy clarification that goes over to the state so that they can weigh into that if we don't get clarity from the committee. And then that change will go through the change process to be prioritized and fixed if it does need an enhancement, or else there'll be a loop back to the individual county through the committee or process to be able to say, hey, you might have thought that it didn't meet policy, but from the committee or a policy clarification, it does, or it doesn't, and this is where it resides. So there's a process to be able to vet that and sort of work through that. And of course, that does take some time to be able to get through and get back through the committee. But Karen, is there anything that you want to add to that explanation? If Karen's still on. Yeah. Or Lisa. But Shalon, that's an overview of that. And if there's more information needed, probably take it offline, but that's sort of an overview, because we know sometimes there's interpretation. Is that really meeting policy? And we look at that and either refer it back to the committee so they can do that. And that's a really important item of why it's important that the counties have communication with their committee members to be able to share that perspective. And then if necessary, what we call the CPCR, which is the policy clarification that we request from our state partners.
Okay, just as long as we have a process in place and we're not going straight to an enhancement request and there's something that's happening on the back end. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Shalon.
Additional comments from the PSC? And I didn't think we had any public comments on this as well. So we will go ahead and go to the next item on the agenda. Brian, are you?
Morning, everyone. Brian Nagy from the IV&V team. So we'll run through some of the core activities that our team's been engaged in and monitoring in the month of July. We'll start with imaging. As you've heard on today's meeting, things are going pretty well with imaging right now. Performance is strong. The expectations of the 40 counties are being met. Performance testing is showing good results thus far using a 58 county data load. The migration of documents from CalWIN to CalSAWS is going well, certainly making good progress now. And imaging UAT, imaging admin UAT is scheduled to wrap up, I believe, tomorrow. And so far, we're seeing some positive results. Moving down to batch, again, we're seeing good results here, things trending in the right way. Performance testing using 43 county data has started within the past month or so. We're continuing to see performance improve. Tuning efforts are ongoing, really focusing on getting within the 10-hour window. And our team specifically is looking at reviewing performance test results, and we are doing so as they are made available. But again, things are trending positive right now. Moving to CalWIN data conversion. The big emphasis right now is making sure conversion happens within that 84-hour window. Things are again looking or trending positively there. We'll be monitoring the progress of the 1B mock cutover the next couple of weeks. Looking at CDV or county data validation testing, it wrapped up recently. It went really well. A lot of positives came out of that. A lot of lessons learned were taken back, and overall lots of good feedback was received. Our team thought it went really well. Testing for Golden Data Set 8 is in progress. It's nearing completion. And overall, again, we're making good progress. We've seen significant improvement in terms of resolving CDT defects over the past couple months. So good things coming out of there. With CalWIN Wave 1 implementation readiness, UAT Group 1, as you've heard, is in progress, scheduled to wrap up tomorrow. There's still some scripts that are outstanding to be tested, but overall we're seeing positive results, and our team has noticed not only good user participation, but good support from the project as well. Group 2 is scheduled to begin on the 25th, which is next week. A couple months back, there's a meeting series implemented, CalWIN implementation leadership meeting series. Our team attends that. We've noticed some very positive results as a result of that. We've seen enhanced communication or improved communication and collaboration amongst teams, really helping to drive things forward. We've also seen improved accountability. So a lot of good things coming out of that meeting, thought it was worth calling out. Our team is reviewing key artifacts and data on a regular basis, such as critical path items, implementation work plans. And right now we're looking at reviewing deliverable 10, which is dealing with implementation support, pre and post support details. So in the middle of that as we speak. And then shifting to CDGs here, Wave 1 CDGs have been finalized. Prep sessions were recently held, I think in the last week or two. Our team attended those. We thought they were very well conducted and well received. And from our perspective, definitely were value add. So a lot of positives there. And then finally on our SAWS and Benefits Cal DDI releases, 2207 received green light yesterday to go into production over the weekend. Everything looks good there. We'll be attending the post deployment support calls next week. And Benefits Cal release 4 is on track. I believe that's going in next Thursday, the 28th. A couple minor defects here and there, but overall things look really good and look to be on schedule for release. And unless there are questions, that's it from IVNV.
Hey, Brian, just a quick item to give a little bit of context for our newest project steering committee meeting members. IVNV stands for Independent Verification and Validation. Brian is the project executive of that engagement with PCG, and they're on contract with OSI, with the state, to be able to independently come in and do these assessments and work with us. So, a lot of times we're providing information from the project, what's going on. You heard from our QA vendor that's on the project team as well to be able to do that. And now Brian comes in independently, and him and his team validate those items, meet with the project team, meet with myself to make sure that if they see concerns that we don't see, or how we're progressing on the concerns that we all see, and working through that.
Thanks, John. I'll add that into my slide for tomorrow. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from the PSC? All right, any questions or comments from the public? All right, that moves us into our state partner updates. So we will go ahead and get started with OSI.
Thanks, Winna. This is Brandon Hansard from OSI. I also want to reiterate my thanks to the IVNV team that report to us. As you just heard, it's quite a bit of our deep dives are done through the IVNV team, and the value add that gives us context on how things are going has been great. Wanted to provide a few updates on the federal approval processes that we have been going on this past month in terms of procurements and contracts. We did receive approval of the CalSAWS Maintenance and Operations RFP from our federal partners in early July. And the consortium was able to release that RFP to the vendor community early on July 6th, giving a greater window of opportunity for the vendors to review and provide responses and feedback. We have also been working on the CalSAWS LRS Amendment 30 and Deloitte Change Order 5. We did submit those to the federal partners on July 1st, and just late last week, July 18th, we facilitated a walkthrough of the content of those documents to assist in the review and approval. Also in the month of July, we've worked with the consortium to address CMS comments on the CalWIN June 2022 annual OAPDU. And because of being able to work through those comments quickly and getting quick responses from the project, we did get CMS approval on July 19th. That wraps up the OSI updates. I can turn it over to CDSS now.
And can I see if we have any questions from the PSC or the public? So PSC comments on Brandon's update? Any public comments on the update? All right, thank you. Now we'll go ahead and go to CDSS.
Good morning, this is Cherie Sterling from CDSS. Currently, we have no new updates for this month. We are busy with policy work with our SAWS and program partners. We should have an update next month. Passing it over to DHCS if there's no questions.
Hi, and good morning. This is Katie Mead from DHCS. Have quite a few updates, so we'll go ahead and get started. On July 15th, 2022, CMS extended the PHE for up to an additional 90 days. As previously mentioned here and in other forums, DHCS is awaiting a 60-day notice from CMS to begin the PHE, or Public Health Emergency, unwinding process. As of today, we have not received that 60-day notice, so it is maintaining status quo as of today. The next two updates I have will be effective July 1st of 2022. The first one is members enrolled in the following programs: the Optional Targeted Low Income Program, the Medi-Cal Access Program, the Medi-Cal Access Infants Program, County Children's Health Insurance Program, and the 250% Working Disabled Program will no longer be required to pay a premium as an eligibility requirement. Premiums have been reduced to zero in all of our systems and SAWS, in our SAWS systems, excuse me, and will display as zero for all current beneficiaries and newly eligible applicants. DHCS has released policy guidance regarding this reduction of premiums via an all county welfare's director's letter, excuse me, ACWDL 22-14 back in June of 2022. Additional guidance will be released as it becomes available, and DHCS will provide outreach to beneficiaries affected by this change. The second update effective July 1st is the asset limits for non-MAGI Medi-Cal programs and the Medicare savings programs has changed as follows. The asset limit has increased to $130,000 per individual, with an additional $65,000 for each additional household member, up to 10 household members. These changes have been programmed in SAWS and apply to current beneficiaries and new applicants. DHCS released policy guidance regarding these changes via ACWDL 21-31 in December of 2021. DHCS will provide outreach to applicants who were denied to being over the resource limit between January 2022 and June 2022, encouraging them to reapply. Excuse me, the last update I have is the Welfare and Institutions Code has been updated to align Medi-Cal redeterminations with federal guidelines, including revisions to the 90-day cure period requirements. The updated 90-day cure period policy treats information received during the 90-day cure period as a new application. This includes a new application date, a new annual renewal date, and a retroactive determination only if requested. DHCS will be issuing a comprehensive redetermination ACWDL that provides updated policy guidance by the end of August 2022 and will include language that counties should continue the current 90-day cure processes until system implementation occurs. DHCS will be convening a work group with CWDA, counties, and SAWS to identify updates to county business practices and system changes needed to ensure successful implementation of the updated 90-day cure period policy, excuse me. The work group is planned to begin in early September of 2022. Those are all DHCS updates. I'll hand it back to Winna.
That was a lot. So do we have any questions from the PSC? Seeing none, do we have any public questions from the public? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and we will move into regional updates. So because I have the microphone, I will start and we will go in reverse order today. So providing a few updates from Region 6. We are still hiring for eligibility staff. As I'm sure other counties have experienced, there's been an increase in our applications that are coming in. So we are continuing to hire eligibility workers and eligibility supervisors. For LA, we are continuing to see a spike in our COVID numbers. So we are reevaluating and strengthening our COVID protocols for staff and the public. Strong efforts are still underway for us to engage our GAIN participants. And then lastly, we are working collaboratively with LA Metro on job recruitment activities for our participants. So those are some of the highlights from Region 6. And now I will pass it to Region 5.
Hello, everyone. I have a couple of updates for Region 5. So in Imperial County, Paola Llanas has been named acting director for Imperial County for the Department of Social Services during the active recruitment. In Orange, Tim Ibinger is the new deputy director. He replaced Allison Piguet. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing those names correctly. Tran has been appointed the new director to succeed Deborah Bates. In Riverside, participated in 15 community outreach events utilizing their new outreach bands. Here during our MSV visit this Monday, we had an opportunity to look at those. Nice equipment, nice tools. They began training and readiness activities for new shared work plan approach that is centered around a first contact resolution approach and continues to market for eligibility technician positions on social media, radio, and a variety of in-person and virtual job fairs. Santa Barbara hired 24 eligibility workers. Santa Barbara is planning their next EWMS hire in September in order to stay ahead of vacancies as they move forward to cut over to CalSouth. Santa Barbara is currently in county-specific sessions, weekly meetings for ad hoc reporting, contact center IVR, and finalizing their BPR decisions to update existing business processes and strategies on how best to use the change discussion guides. Here in San Diego, as I mentioned, we hosted Region 5 site visit this past Monday. Lots of good conversation within the region. San Diego, the last 2 days, we hosted a delegation of Puerto Rico who were here to look at our SNAP processes. Along with them, we had guests from CDSS and USDA FNS. So that was a very successful meeting. And I will go ahead and pass it over to Elaine so that she can give us a little updates on Ventura County.
Thank you, Alberto. So here in Ventura County, we've been also increasing our hiring activities to support our efforts in just, the work, and then with CalSAWS and needing to have our teams work in that area. We've engaged in implementation planning, kicking off our BPR and identifying which workflows we need to look at a little bit deeper. Our UAT training is going pretty well. And we started our change management kickoff meetings, and we've already had an intro meeting with TOS, and we've got another meeting scheduled. So we're moving right along. Thank you.
Does that conclude updates for Region 5? If so, we will move to Region 4.
Okay, great, thank you. Cindy, it's for Region 4. And first report out is from Fresno County. Fresno is participating in the CalSAWS UAT efforts started in May. They also have 2 analysts who will be on site for imaging UAT, and UAT coordinators meet weekly to review the process and share information. In Kern County, we're beginning to pilot through working through tasks for our intake processes. And this was developed as part of our first contact resolution and the contract with the state with the Change Innovation Agency. We also are working on trying to increase our staffing here due to our high application volumes and staffing challenges. And so we do have a class that will graduate in August, 2 more classes starting, and we're attempting to have a 3rd class. So we're hoping, we've been doing a lot on social media and working on a video that we can promote some recruitments and retention for our eligibility workers. In Mariposa County, they have a new PPOC, Alicia. I don't have her last name, but she is working, taking the place of the former PPOC, Lana again. They have a new eligibility supervisor, Andrea Powell. They are also recruiting for eligibility specialists, system support analyst, and a continuous recruitment for eligibility specialist. They've recently hired 2 who are now going through induction training. And in June, they celebrate Eligibility Appreciation Month. In Merced, they have a new program manager over eligibility, Cheryl Lyles. In San Luis Obispo County, San Luis Obispo started their BPR to be processes this month, and the sessions are going well. They've had great participation from both the project and the county and are on track to complete the sessions as scheduled. At this time, it was in early July. They have a new office in Atascadero set to open in phases, first with Child Welfare and IHSS in July, and then participant services in August, September. In Stanislaus, they have a new assistant director, Erlinda Casiano, who replaced Delilah Vasquez. And in Tulare, they have filled the vacancy. I believe it's PPOC left by Danny Rockholt with Myra Cardenas. She will be the new PPOC and will also serve as the OPAC representative moving forward. And that's it for the Region 4 updates. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move to Region 3.
And this is Rachel from Region 3. Like the other regions, our counties have experienced a lot of challenges in staffing, but we've also had some successes in recruitment. For Butte County, they brought to light really the impact of losing experienced staff. So although we're bringing on new staff, you know, for each experienced eligibility staff or employment and training staff that leaves, it's not a 1-for-1 because it does take a lot of resource to bring people up in experience. Butte County also completed their civil rights audit, and they are working on their telephonic signature procedures to update those. Colusa County started a new 30-day boot camp training method for their induction. Once the 30-day boot camp is complete, their eligibility specialists will start with a small caseload and increase from there. And they do report having some successes in their eligibility recruitments. Del Norte also has good news. They are now fully staffed in their staff services analyst positions, but they are experiencing a challenge in their fraud investigations. For Lake County, they completed their CalFresh management evaluation, but they also report that their health and nutrition CalFresh Medi-Cal caseloads have increased up to between 800 and 1,000 cases per worker. In Mendocino County, we just finished up an eligibility induction class of 5 staff, including 3 bilingual staff. And we anticipate our next induction class to begin at the end of August. And we will have a new employment and training worker induction class starting on Monday, the 25th. Modoc County is also reporting that they are currently still very short-staffed. They state that in the past 5 months of advertising for positions, they've only had 3 applicants. In Plumas County reports that they've had a successful recruitment for eligibility worker, and they've been able to promote within the employment and training series. Shasta County had success in hiring their 2 vacancies for analysts in meds and help desk. And they are reporting also that they've made modifications to their recruitment and hiring processes. They've created a new exam for eligibility positions, have started ads on social media and radio, and are also bringing staff on before the class start date so they don't lose staff between hire and class start. They are working on advertisements for CalFresh emergency allotments ending, and they also completed their CalFresh management evaluation. In Siskiyou County is in the process of transitioning from individual caseloads to banked caseloads and are starting to utilize task management. They report that they are still very short on eligibility specialists and in the clerical classifications. Tehama County just started a new eligibility class and is still trying to recruit specifically in the clerical or support staff classifications. And for Trinity County, they have restructured their administration to include 2 program managers, and they are currently looking at ways to improve inductions training and looking at ways to include staff development trainings for retention. And that is it for Region 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Region 2.
For Region 2, much like the other regions, everyone is hiring. A few counties have reclassified their current staff so that they have the ability to work in some other areas for like CalFresh employment services. Placer County has completed their configuration discovery sessions and are working through their LMS WBTs and working on completing their fiscal interface training. YOLO has finished their configuration discovery sessions and has switched their early training to virtual for now. Placer is still switching back and forth. And for YOLO, Nolan Sullivan has been permanently promoted to the agency director. I couldn't remember if we reported that out already. And they finished their configuration, or already said that. And Sacramento is working on their to-be sessions. That was the other thing we had to report out. And that's really it for Region 2.
Thank you. Region 1.
I want to start by saying thank you to my PSC colleagues for doing it reverse this time. So for Region 1, I have 4 updates coming from counties. The first one is Monterey. So they completed the CalFresh management evaluation mid-June, and they're now working through the findings. They are completing their general assistance internal audit, which is expected through the end of this July, and findings are expected to come out sometime in August of this year. And like most other counties, Monterey is really busy getting back to their new normal, and they've also reported the ongoing efforts to fill vacancies in all their departments. Solano is working on a number of CalSOS efforts. They are, participating in the UAT process, the user acceptance. They have about 14 testers that are testing that. They're also working on increasing their utilization of their sandbox. They received the report that I guess there's some more opportunities for their staff to use it. Then they're also working on their CalSOS readiness survey, and the same thing that they are socializing that to their staff to make sure that they have a lot of survey responses. They also started on meeting with their contact center to plan and prepare for the CalSOS call center. Then for Santa Cruz is also actively engaged in a number of CalSOS efforts, similar to Solano, which is the contact center county discussions. So that seems to be ongoing now. They're prepping for internal coordination of renaming their county forms for CalSOS imaging purposes. They're messaging to staff and prepping for BPR closeout sessions. Then for San Francisco, we signed off on the CalSAWS to be design maps and process change inventory. We're currently reviewing our process change items in open status and defining an approach on how to resolve. And we just wrapped up the CalSAWS Group 1 UAT and starting with the Group 2 UAT. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, John, is there anything else you would like to add in closing before we adjourn?
Great job on finishing us off early, Winna, on the first meeting of the fiscal year. We had a number of items in chat that we will take as action items and try to get those accessibility items in place going forward. But nothing else. Thank you, Winna.
With that said, you all will get back about 35 minutes of your day. Have a good lunch. Enjoy your day. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Winna.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, June.
Thanks, everybody.